Welcome to the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-hosts, Dr. Steve Jeffs and Erwin de Grave. Each episode, we bring you expert guests and transformative coaching insights. Let's dive in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-host, Dr. Steve Jeff, and myself, Erwin de Grave. And today we have the great pleasure to talk to Suzi Pomerantz. Hello, Suzi. How are you doing?
Hi, good. How are you guys?
Good. And welcome, Steve, of course. So, Suzi, we could try to introduce yourself, but you know yourself much better than we do. So, who is Suzi? What does she do in coaching? How did she get into coaching?
Well, that's a lot. So I've been my entrepreneurial journey has been about 32 years long so far. So it's been quite a ride. I am the CEO of Innovative Leadership International, which I founded in 1993. I was in the first group of coaches that were granted the MCC, the Master Coach Credential, through the ICF back in 1998. I've renewed it every 3 years for 27 years and counting. That puts me in the top 4% of coaches worldwide, supposedly. And it's been fun because over the last 32 years, my executive leadership coaching business has taken me physically to Canada, to Italy, to West Africa, to most of the states in the United States. I've gone from cities to oceans, to deserts, to forests, to Fortune 100 executive suites, to boardrooms, to law firms, to the NIH, the National Institutes of Health here in the US. And, I've coached folks who live in Jordan, who live in Vancouver, who live in Bulgaria, who live in Hong Kong, who live in Kansas. It's really been quite a ride, like I said. But my work is primarily focused one-on-one with senior executives, senior leaders. My work is customized. It's for leaders across all sectors. And where there's a commonality, I'd say, my best clients are really wicked smart, mission-driven leaders that want to amplify their impact. They want to amplify their results. They want to increase their influence, and they want to be strategic about it. That's with my clients, who I love. But in addition to that, in terms of giving back to the coaching community, in 2007, I co-founded the Library of Professional Coaching with my partner, Dr. Bill Berquist, who you guys know. I've built a bunch of professional organizations for coaches globally. I've written a bunch of books. I've won awards. I've served on boards. I don't know what you want me to say about any of that. But I'm a mom to 2 amazing kids who are 21 and 23 now, and trying to consciously evolve into my highest self.
How did you got into coaching in 32 years ago?
Yeah, great question. It was not a direct path. As you can imagine, 32 years ago, we didn't have coach training schools. We didn't have the literally hundreds and hundreds of coach training programs that exist now. There was no university giving certifications in coaching back then. I was fortunate in that when I left my master's is in education, when I left my teaching career, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I gave myself 6 months to figure out what I wanted to do, probably because that's what I had in savings. I only had enough savings to fund myself for 6 months. But I gave myself that deadline, and I started doing informational interviews. And I started with 3 people that I knew. And over that 6 months, ended up speaking to 150 people. A couple of those people were folks that were connected into businesses that were licensed to use what they called transformational technology. They spoke to each other of it as coaching, and they were working in, executive suites all over the US. So I was trained by them, and my coaching certification came from that company that trained me in the methodology and technology that they were licensed to use. And I started working with a group of high performance manufacturing managers who were going through their own coaching program, learning how to coach, how to be a coach manager for their staff. And my job was, I had, in this program that these high performance manufacturing managers were in, they had partner pairs. And my job was to get on calls with these partner pairs and be their mentor coach as they were grappling with, distinct coaching conversations. Excuse me, hold on. So they, that's how I started. I had 15 pairs of these high performance manufacturing managers that I was coaching. Pretty quickly from there, I had to learn a whole bunch of other entrepreneurial things, like what do you do when that project ends and you love coaching, but you don't have any clients, Oh, that's called sales. Got it. Right. So had to learn all about sales. And I was 24 when I started my coaching business. So I didn't know what I didn't know. And that ignorance really served me, I think, because I got to learn and figure it out as I went along.
How did you make that ignorance an asset? Because often ignorance is what holds us back or gets us stuck. But it sounds like you had a mindset around ignorance that allowed you to bring curiosity and step in and through it.
Actually, I had a really great coach. So when I started my coaching business, I had found myself, I knew I wanted to do it, but when that one project ended and I didn't have any other income, I ended up accruing debt on my credit card. So I was about $10,000 in debt when my coach said to me, well, what have you learned? And how do you want to apply what you've learned? And if you had gone to get a master's degree or a PhD, how much would you have spent? And at that time, I think I said, oh, maybe $30,000, $40,000. He said, yeah. And how long would it have taken you? Oh, 2 or 3 years. Okay, so you're now a year into this. You've spent 10 grand. How do you want to apply it? Let's say you're graduating now, and this is your degree from the 10,000 you just invested in your education. And that was a turning point for me. So that was how I took my ignorance, my blind spots, what I didn't know, and really committed to figuring out what it would take to run a successful business beyond just being a coach, right? I knew how to coach. I knew I was good at coaching. I knew I loved coaching. But I then committed to all the other aspects of running a business: networking, marketing, sales. How do you do it? How do you do it consistently? How do you build systems? How do you build processes? How do you retain clients? How do you have clients come back? How do you get referrals? All of that,
Mm-hmm. And you've written some books on that, and there's definitely some other clips on YouTube and stuff of you talking about those things. As you look back at this entrepreneurial journey, and particularly the shifts that have happened in the world the last few years, what are you seeing is similar for people in business today, and what are you seeing is changing?
What a great question. I see why you're a coach. Well, what's similar is you can't just be altruistically wanting to help people as a coach and expect to make a living doing it. That's the same. I mean, I have a pet peeve around that, actually. In the coaching community, we often talk about building a practice. We talk about having a coaching practice, and it's annoying to me. It's really a pet peeve. I have to keep saying, no, it's a business. It is a business. It is not a practice. We're not practicing an instrument. We're not running a dental practice. This is a business. And I think what I've come to over time is the distinction is who you serve, right? If you're serving individuals as a life coach, maybe it is a practice. If you're serving, like I do, executives and leaders inside an organizational context where you have to apply systems thinking and you have to understand business protocols and processes and nuances and landscapes, then it's a business, right? So I think it boils down to who's your audience, who are you serving, who do you help, and what do you help them to do?
It's happened that a lot of coaches have that challenge that they love to help people, but they don't have that business mind and that business thing. So if you would talk to coaches like this, what would you recommend based on your 30 plus years of experience as a coach, but certainly as a business CEO of your own business? What would be the three or the top five things that they really need to look at to make sure that their business coaching business is could be a success or should be a success?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, hope is not a strategy. I hear so many coaches saying, well, I go to conferences and meet people and hope that someone will hire me, or I go to lunch and hope with someone, and hope that no, hope is not a business development strategy. The other thing I would say is it takes constant action. You can't just sit back on your laurels and wait for clients to show up. You have to do something to intentionally find your clients or put yourself in places visibly where your clients will be. You have to be strategic and be willing to pivot. There are numerous times in the past 32 years where I found myself having to pivot in some small ways and some huge ways. So, it's watching the trends. It's not just being nose down in your business. It's working in your business as well as on your business. And paying attention to what's going on in the world too. So, to answer your question about what's different now is with technology moving as fast as it is now, with AI, with political changes globally, not just in the US, but across the globe, there are a lot of real opportunities, but also a lot of real potential landmines that I don't remember having to face earlier on, or maybe I just wasn't aware. That's possible too.
So how can coaches, like what you just described, all those landmines that could be laying around, opportunities as well, is also willing to take the necessary risk and just jump and go for it, calculate it. But what would you say look at for what do you see coaching heading to?
Well, I see a lot of people embracing AI, and I see a lot of coaches on both sides of the spectrum, right? Really fearful that AI is going to replace them, and also people who are embracing it fully and developing their own coach AI companion for their business to be able to be available to their clients digitally 24/7, using an AI coach that they've taught to speak and think the way they do, which I think is kind of cool. I'm kind of in the middle on that spectrum, I'd say. I think AI is a really powerful tool. I'm not yet sure the best strategic way to implement it in my business other than using it like a glorified research assistant. Yeah, but I think that executives, which that's my client base, they're faced with that same challenge: how to implement and integrate AI into their businesses and into their workplaces. I think COVID changed a lot of things because there's so many hybrid work situations now, which creates real leadership challenges for most people in leadership positions. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Yeah. What do you guys see?
Well, let's go there. I'm excited by the opportunities of AI. To your point, I got no idea how to use it, how it fits in, what's possible. But it's really exciting. Hope is not a strategy, but there's some hope in that strategy of hoping that I'm going to learn and exploring it further. I'm definitely using it as a research assistant. In fact, my wife mentioned to me, she was asking me some questions about actually naming a project for her work. And so I went to AI and said, hey, here's some context. Here's here's 10 options you could choose. And she's like, wow, that's a really cool one. What I did love about that is I could then ask the AI and say, hey, are there any diversity, equity, inclusion issues with these names? Are there any political risks to using these names? Because I wouldn't know. And working globally, some of the things that we take for granted in one culture can have completely different repercussions and impact in others. And so I found that a really useful way where I could be coach-like and ask the questions
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
guide the thinking of the AI to serve the purpose. So that was kind of a fun example from today, actually.
Yeah, I do love the iterative back and forth conversations you can have with AI, where they kind of remember everything you've talked about before, and you can clarify and add and twist and turn and correct and get them to go somewhere different. Learning how it generates, what it generates allows you to ask better questions to get better results. So that's been fun to play with too.
Yeah, I
I
go a step
love
further.
that.
So I'm enormously creative with my mind. I can jump around to like a million hundred places. And I've always been interested in technology, but I'm not a coder, I'm not a programmer. So with AI, I'm just starting to create apps and stuff and plugins that we can use in the business. And I don't know any code. I do understand. That's what you said, Susie, as well. Understanding the processes, understanding what you really want and how things should be working. Like in my head, I know that should be working that way. AI allows me to really explain what my chaos is in my mind, to really structure it. And I say, I like this, I don't like this, I wanted this, I want this. And I'll say, make me a program or give me the code and let's make this. So I see when you were talking about, I'm afraid to lose my job as a coach. Will I use an AI coach? You said you're in the middle. I'm really going, how can I use AI coach? How can I create apps that will allow me for my business to make things much easier? But how can I use this as well in my coaching practice? Maybe in creating certain apps, it's like an example, and it's a personal environment. My kid in school, they need some help with maths and Spanish and German and stuff like that. And my mind starts thinking, maybe why not create something that they would have access to a 24/7 teacher explaining about what on that level, and not teach them things that they should not know, because the teacher will know this is AI, but that they can
Right.
ask questions and say, I don't understand this. Can you explain this in my way? I think there's so much opportunities, but you need to be able to take advantage of and say, I sometimes would say love, like close me up for 2 weeks and just full in all the ideas that I have that I want to develop. And I think it's amazing. But it's like what you mentioned before. It's to be willing to pivot, willing to jump around. That doesn't work. Let's do something new and try this out. That does not work. Oh, that works. Let's do it. And certainly working around with other people doing this. So I see that possibility. So I do it more. I do research as well, but I try really to create things with it.
That's where I run into trust. That's where I don't trust it, because the things I've tried to create, I was almost angry, at which, I laugh at that I got angry at a machine, but it promised me things. It told me it could do things that it then didn't fulfill. And when I called it on it, right, when I held it accountable, it basically just kept being agreeable with me. Oh, yes, you're right. I absolutely promised that, and I did not deliver, and I should have, and you have every right to ask me again. And yes, I will deliver, and you will get it within the hour. And then within the hour, I come back. No, and what happened? I'll just say to it, what happened? Well, I promised this and I didn't deliver, and yet again, but here's what I will do. Right. And it lied and it deceived me, and it actually produced something I was asking it to generate was to read a manuscript and to pull out a timeline from that manuscript. And it said it could do that, right? I wasn't asking it to do anything too complicated like write code. And it produced basically a document of placeholders for where the timeline would go. And I'm like, this is not what I asked for. And it said, you're right. I lied. I deceived you. And I was just like, what? What? How is this okay?
At the same
So
time,
this, yeah,
that happens also when you look at it and when I'm listening to you. It's the same with if you would have an employee as a physical person. If you explain wrongly and not 100%, they may be going to make the same thing. So it's all about how you, and that's
the
what I
prompt engineering.
the prompt and engineering, that you need to
Yep.
be very clear. And there's certain things that you can tell them. So listen, you can, and I'm going in details, but you can tell your AI to say, hey, if you don't know, tell me you don't know.
Yeah, I
And
had to figure that out. Yeah, and I had to, and now my hack for that, by the way, is um, every time I put a prompt in, I say, tell me how to improve this prompt, colon, and then I put my prompt in of what I want it to do. And then it gives me back, if I haven't done it well, it gives me back what it would really like to know. And then I can ask it to do what I want it to do in its own language.
yeah, it is. But it's
It's
what that comparison, what we say, yeah, the AI doesn't do, but in the past when there was no technology and still nowadays with employees, if you as a manager don't explain it as it what you think and you cannot express it, you're going to have a result based on what you ask. And if your ask is not correct, they will just deliver. And then you're
Right,
going to complain on them. I think this is, and I think
right.
you've seen this as well.
I think it's one of those slippery things with AI because it promises a lot. It can do stuff really quickly.
Mhm.
It can generate text, but we still need to manage the text. We still need to own the text that's coming out. We still need to fact check and ensure the articulation is correct, because subtle changes in words can, of course, significantly change the meaning. And what I find is that it can be really fun to get in and play with the AI. In fact, I think I spent all morning playing with something with no tangible outcome,
Right, right.
because I'm in there and I'm tweaking and I'm changing, and suddenly it evolves, and now I've got to connect it to Google Docs, and now there's an API, and now I've got to do this, and now there's these other things, and
Yeah,
now I'm up to the third branch away from actually where I started, and it feels productive. It feels almost engaging, but not quite. It's not quite energizing, because there's a lot of management, not a lot of creativity, although it kind of feels creative. Um, and then again, what's the output? And I'm seeing a lot of people spending a lot of time creating a whole lot of starts to stuff.
yeah,
And I think, speaking about business and coaching, this is a really important place for us to pay attention to, because, passion drives our behavior, it drives our focus. As the CEO of a business, we need to be making decisions in service of the business, not necessarily in terms of our momentary, passionate drive towards things that feel compelling in the moment. Whether that's I love the coaching, let me just do the coaching and sacrifice everything else, or whether that's let me do the AI as I can procrastinate against all the other stuff I don't want to do. But I think it's that strategic view to sit back, and I love what you said before. No, it's a business. You got to treat it as a business. You have responsibilities as a business, legal as well as kind of ethical. And actually, how do I give myself permission to own these new roles that I didn't necessarily realize I accepted when I became a professional coach?
yeah. And I use the hats method, where any role, and I've done this with leaders as well, but I do it with myself too. Any role that you're in, you consider it to be a hat, right? So in my business, I have the coach hat, I have the CEO hat, I have the CFO hat when I have to do the financial stuff. I have a role as the janitor in my office. I'm the one who has to take out the trash, right? So I
Yeah.
have all these different hats that I wear. And when you actually stop and sit down and think about it, there's a finite number of hats that any leader, no matter how complex their role is, wears. I have yet to work with an executive who has more than about 12 to 15 hats. That's kind of about the finite number. So once you can identify what those hats are, it gives you natural buckets of how to organize your time and your thinking and your priorities and your energy, to look at where's the best use of your time, right? I mean, I could spend a lot of time in my janitor role, but that's not going to get me money. I could spend a lot of time in my I don't know, in my generating content role or my, but that by itself isn't going to get me money, right? So there are things that I have to do. So there's a role as a salesperson. Okay. Well, I got to spend more time in that role if I'm not making a living at the level I'd like to yet.
Mm. And those roles, when you do, I love it when you select those hats, because it's like we talked about the AI or content creation. Say, I'll allow me to do like 3 hours content creation or AI, and I just going on AI and I'm gonna mess around. But it's something I'll allow me, and it's in this time. So it's not like, so I've done 3 hours. No, I've dedicated to it and I planned for it, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's strategic. Exactly. And to your point earlier, Steve, about fact checking with AI, I have a colleague who's written a bunch of leadership books, maybe 22 leadership books, 23. And he was working on a novel. His latest novel that's coming out has to do with the Vietnam War. And so he was doing some research. He had AI he asked AI to provide sources for the research that he had done or the things that he was claiming or saying in the story. And AI produced for him a beautiful resource list of 15 resources that looked valid, sounded real. And he went and checked every single one of them, looked them up to see if it actually did match what he was asking for. Not a single one of them was an actual real resource that he could find anywhere. It was entirely made up by the AI.
Yeah, I've seen that. And I've asked it, well, where did these come from? Oh, I made them up. But it didn't realize that making them up was not expected, because it was, again, to your point, Erwin, the framing of the question and the linearity of the interpretation of the request. Right. You asked me for the evidence and I gave you the evidence.
Yeah.
You didn't say the evidence needed to be verified, sourceable, real,
exactly.
published,
validated.
Validated. All of those other things that as humans, as researchers, and as employees, we often have as assumptions behind the task. Hey, with all of this, what are you seeing as the human value to coaching conversation?
That's a great question because of the AI, the growth, the inevitable growth of AI. And I've actually had people say to me, well, if I can get AI to be my coach, then why do I need a coach? And the answer is because AI will do a really great job with the thinking and what I call the cognitive empathy, but the AI does not have heart and soul. And it's in the integration of mind, intellect, heart, soul, spirit, energy, all of those things where coaching is really powerful. And when they come together in a powerful presence, there are things you're able to provide to leaders, executives, humans that AI cannot do and probably won't ever be able to do, because it's not something programmable.
That's really cool. I love that phrase, that cognitive empathy.
Yeah.
It
those are the right
resonates
things to say. Yeah.
And it feels like empathy, logically. Which is what I love about the phrase, because it's not an empathic connection. There's no connection, but it feels almost like there is, but there's not. You made me think as you were talking. I lost a dog recently, unfortunately, and one of the things that I miss most was just being in the same room.
Yeah, presence.
Like presence and the richness. Like there's nothing happening, nothing doing, no interacting, and it's completely different because of that presence.
Right.
I can't say the richness more than that, but there's something profound about being with, ideally for me, in the same room where there's the three-dimensional kind of in connection that's kind of physically close, but even just being present with someone that's being present with me, through a coaching conversation like this, brings magic, is the best that I can point to.
Yeah, I think magic is a great word for it. And I am so sorry about your loss. Um, it's very real when you can source that kind of presence, it does create a magical connection. And I don't think that magic is replicable with technology.
But the key question is, and I think you mentioned it before, Susan, the key question is, what is the right balance between the human and the AI part that as you as a coach can and provide too, because it is here and it's here to stay and even to
Mm-hmm.
grow even further. And I'm saying is no, I want 100% human and I don't want it. Well, at the end, it's going to eat you. On the other end, I'm just going to rely as a client on AI. I'm missing that human. So as a coach, I believe, and that's my viewpoint and my question to you as well, but is what is finding that balance to be able to say that's human, but also to be able to give certain technological presence to a client that they feel, but they can then select some certain questions and I can go deeper with you. I think that balance is crucial, I think. And that's the key question.
Yeah, and I think we'll get better and better at integrating it into our businesses in ways that serve our clients as well as us. But to me, it always comes down to results, right? Everything I do as a coach, as a business leader, as a entrepreneur is all about results. What are the results I'm trying to get? What are the results the client's trying to get? What will serve them best? And if AI is going to serve them better than me, great. I'm not above suggesting that.
As you said, it's a tool. It's a tool we need to learn how to use. I remember teaching coaching in the classroom, and people are like, how can I coach on the phone? This was back in the day before kind of
Yeah.
Zoom, where Skype was there, and then of course it was, how can I coach virtually, like through Zoom and Skype and things, and now often in the classroom, especially now that we're teaching virtually, it's like, how do I coach in person? Um, and to your point, I mean, these are just different skill sets for us to learn. We got to focus on outcomes. We got to be clear on how we're using the tool. That's true for us and our clients. And I think as coaches, to come back to our core, which is, yes, delivering coaching, but building a business that serves our clients. And how do we keep focusing on that? What are we growing? How do we step into the ignorance that you pointed to at the beginning of your career through that lens of curiosity with the right mentors to be able to go, oh, I don't know, so let me learn and find out, and let that be our growth tool as we all step forward into what's next.
Yeah, and how do we add value? It's always about adding value. And to your point about kind of owning our own blind spots and owning our own ignorance, I do think it's critical for all coaches to have a coach, at least one, if not more than one. I find it a sort of a breakdown of integrity when coaches tell me that they don't have a coach or they don't think they need a coach. Well, then how can you sell coaching? How are you exploring your own edges and your own blind spots and your own limitations if you're not engaging with a coach?
What a powerful question. I think it's a good question for us to leave our audience with. But for those that do have further questions and would love to connect or learn more about your work and how you see the world, Suzi, how can people connect with you?
Oh, I'm on all the social media things and, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, all the things. But then also SuziPomerantz.com is where you can connect with me. And then my company is innovativeleader.com. So either any of those places. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Susie, for this entertaining conversation about so many different topics related to business and coaching. So thank you very much.
Thank
Everybody else,
you.
thank you very much for listening in. And until the next episode, stay safe and we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to The Coaching Edge. Until next time, keep coaching and keep growing.